You start each day with clear priorities, but within hours you're drowning in distractions, jumping between tasks without finishing anything meaningful. Every notification pulls your attention away while focused colleagues accomplish twice as much, leaving you frustrated and behind. I am Sun Tzu, the ancient strategist who proved that concentrated force defeats scattered effort every time. What I discovered about unbreakable focus will transform how you harness your mental energy, giving you the advantage to cut through distractions and achieve breakthrough results. The same principles that concentrated armies into unstoppable forces can concentrate your mind into an unstoppable weapon of achievement. In my years of studying warfare, I learned that victory belongs not to the largest army, but to the most focused one. 1,000 scattered soldiers will always lose to 100 who fight as one unified force. Your attention is your army, and right now, it's scattered across 100 different battlefields. But first, like this video, subscribe for more ancient wisdom, and comment below where you're watching from. I want to know which corner of the world is ready to master focus. Let me share with you the moment I first understood the true power of concentrated force. It was during the siege of a fortified city whose walls had withstood attacks for months. I watched as my generals threw wave after wave of soldiers against different sections of the wall, each assault brave, but ultimately futile. The enemy defenders simply moved to counter each scattered attack. Their focus unified while ours was divided. That night, as I studied the ancient scroll that would later become known as the Scattered Army Report, I realized our fundamental error. This document detailed how the great General Li Wei had lost an entire campaign by dividing his forces across 7 different objectives simultaneously. His army was 3 times larger than his opponents, yet he was defeated decisively because his attention and therefore his power was scattered. I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of attacking the entire wall, I concentrated every soldier, every siege engine, every arrow on a single point no wider than a man's outstretched arms. For 3 days, we hammered that one spot with relentless, focused intensity. The wall that had withstood months of scattered attacks crumbled in hours under concentrated force. This is when I understood the first principle of unbreakable focus. Scattered energy, no matter how abundant, will always lose to concentrated energy, no matter how limited. Your modern workplace operates on the same principle. You face the same choice every morning that I faced on that ancient battlefield. Scatter your forces or concentrate them for maximum impact. Most people wake up and immediately scatter their mental army across dozens of different fronts. They check emails while eating breakfast, listen to podcasts while commuting, plan their day while reading news, and wonder why they feel defeated before the day even begins. Their attention is like Li Wei's army, numerically superior but strategically scattered. But when you concentrate your mental force on one objective at a time, you become unstoppable. The same mind that feels overwhelmed by scattered tasks becomes a precision instrument when focused on a single target. This is not about working harder, it's about working with the focused intensity that turns ordinary effort into extraordinary results. I learned this lesson at great cost, watching brave soldiers die because their General Mai had not yet mastered the art of concentration. Let my experience guide you to a different outcome. Your battles may be fought in conference rooms instead of battlefields, but the principle remains unchanged. Concentrated force always defeats scattered effort. The city fell not because we had more soldiers, but because we focused every soldier on the same objective. Your breakthrough will come not because you have more time, but because you focus all your time on what matters most. After that victory, I became obsessed with understanding why concentration worked so powerfully. I spent years studying not just military campaigns, but the way water carved through stone, how fire consumed forests, and how master craftsmen shaped their materials. In each case, I found the same truth. Focused energy creates results that scattered energy cannot achieve. This led me to develop what I call the principle of single-point impact. I had my strategists create detailed maps showing how concentrated attacks consistently defeated superior but divided forces throughout history. These battle maps became my most treasured teaching tools, proving that victory belonged not to the strongest, but to the most focused. I remember observing a master swordsmith in my court. He would heat metal to precise temperatures, then strike the same spot repeatedly with focused intensity. Each blow was deliberate, concentrated, building upon the previous impact. Scattered strikes across the blade would have created weakness, but concentrated strikes created strength. His focus transformed raw metal into weapons that could cut through anything. This is exactly what happens when you apply concentrated focus to your work. Each focused effort builds upon the previous one, creating momentum that scattered effort cannot achieve. When you jump between tasks, you're like a novice blacksmith, striking random spots on the blade, lots of activity, but no cumulative power. I began teaching my officers that attention is like sunlight, spread across a field. Sunlight warms everything gently, but concentrate that same sunlight through a lens, and it becomes fire that can burn through any obstacle. Your attention has the same transformative power when concentrated properly. The enemy I feared most was not the general with the largest army, but the one who could focus his entire force on my weakest point while I was scattered across multiple fronts. This taught me that in any contest, whether military, business, or personal, decide that can concentrate force at the decisive moment wins. Most people never learn this lesson. They pride themselves on multitasking, believing that divided attention is a sign of capability. But I learned on ancient battlefields that divided attention is a sign of coming defeat. The general who tries to watch every part of the battlefield simultaneously sees nothing clearly. The general who focuses intensely on the critical moment sees everything that matters. Your smartphone buzzes with notifications because it wants to scatter your army across 100 different battlefields. Your email inbox demands attention because it wants to divide your forces. Your social media feeds pull at your focus because they profit from your scattered attention. These are not neutral tools, they are weapons designed to destroy your concentration. I fought enemies who used similar tactics, creating distractions to scatter my forces while they concentrated theirs for decisive strikes. The generals who fell for these deceptions lost their battles. The generals who maintained focus despite distractions won their campaigns. The same principle applies to your daily battles for productivity and achievement. When you understand that your attention is your army, you begin to protect it as fiercely as a general protects his soldiers. You stop allowing random interruptions to scatter your forces. You stop volunteering for battles that don't serve your primary objective. You start concentrating your mental army where it can achieve decisive victory. The second principle I discovered was what I call strategic positioning of attention. Just as armies must choose their battlefield carefully, you must choose where to direct your focus with equal precision. Not all tasks deserve your concentrated attention. Some battles should not be fought at all. I learned this lesson during a campaign where 3 enemy armies threatened my territory simultaneously. My advisors urged me to divide our forces to meet each threat, but I saw a different path. I studied my intelligence reports and realized that only one of these armies posed a genuine threat to our strategic objectives. The other 2 were diversions, designed to scatter our forces and weaken our response to the real danger. I kept detailed scrolls of what I called target priority assessments, documents that ranked every potential objective by its strategic value. These assessments saved my campaigns countless times by preventing me from wasting concentrated force on insignificant targets. The general who focuses on everything focuses on nothing. The general who focuses on the right thing at the right time becomes unstoppable. This principle transformed how I approached every decision. Before committing my forces to any battle, I would ask, if I achieve complete victory here, does it bring me closer to my ultimate objective? If the answer was no, I would not engage. No matter how tempting the immediate opportunity appeared, your daily life presents the same challenge. Every email, every meeting, every request for your attention is asking you to commit your mental army to a particular battlefield. Most people say yes to everything, spreading their forces so thin that they cannot achieve decisive victory anywhere. They become busy but not effective, active but not impactful. I want you to understand something that took me years to learn. Your attention is finite, but your potential impact is infinite when that attention is properly directed. The executive, who focuses on 3 critical objectives, will accomplish more than the executive who focuses on 30 moderate ones. The entrepreneur who concentrates on one breakthrough product will succeed, where the entrepreneur who launches 10 average products fails. This is why I developed what I call the 3-front rule. Never engage on more than 3 major fronts simultaneously. When a 4th opportunity arises, you must either reject it or abandon one of your existing commitments. This rule forced me to make difficult choices, but it also ensured that my attention remained concentrated enough to achieve meaningful results. The enemy general who scattered his forces across 7 different objectives gave me an easy victory. He was busier than I was, more active than I was, but he was not more focused than I was. His scattered attention created scattered results. My concentrated attention created concentrated power that shattered his divided efforts. Most people fear that focusing on fewer things means achieving less, but I learned that focusing on fewer things means achieving more, much more. When you concentrate your mental army on the objectives that matter most, you become capable of breakthrough results that scattered effort cannot produce. The key is learning to distinguish between what feels urgent and what is actually important. Urgent tasks scatter your forces by demanding immediate attention. Important tasks concentrate your forces by building toward meaningful objectives. The master of focus serves importance and ignores urgency unless it serves their strategic goals. The 3rd principle that transformed my understanding of focus was environmental mastery. I discovered that the physical environment shapes mental concentration more powerfully than most generals realize. A scattered environment creates scattered thinking, while an organized environment enables focused thinking. During one particularly challenging campaign, I noticed that my strategies became confused whenever I worked in my cluttered command tent. Maps overlapped with supply reports, messenger scrolls mixed with battle plans, and weapons lay scattered among writing materials. My external chaos was creating internal chaos, fragmenting my ability to think clearly about complex strategic problems. I ordered my aide to create what I called the sacred strategy spacer dedicated area where only materials related to my current primary objective were allowed. This space was cleared of all distractions, arranged to support deep thinking, and protected from interruptions. The transformation in my strategic clarity was immediate and profound. I kept a detailed record called the Environment Optimization Manual, documenting how different physical arrangements affected my mental performance. I learned that visual clutter scattered attention, while clean spaces concentrated it. I discovered that having materials for multiple projects visible simultaneously divided my focus, while having only current priority materials visible unified it. This principle extends far beyond physical space. I realized that the people I surrounded myself with also shaped my ability to concentrate. Advisors who constantly brought me scattered information created scattered thinking. Advisors who brought me focused, relevant intelligence-enabled, focused decision-making. I began curating my human environment as carefully as my physical environment. The same principle applies to your modern work environment. Your desk, your computer desktop, your phone, and your workspace either support concentration or destroy it. Most people work in environments that fragment their attention, then wonder why they struggle to focus. They surround themselves with visual reminders of dozens of different projects, then wonder why their thinking feels scattered. I learned to treat my environment as a strategic weapon. Every item in my command space was placed intentionally to support my primary objective. Unnecessary items were removed not because they were bad, but because they scattered my attention from what mattered most. This level of environmental discipline multiplied my mental effectiveness dramatically. Your environment is sending you constant messages about what deserves your attention. A cluttered desk sends the message that everything is equally important. A focused workspace sends the message that your primary objective deserves concentrated effort. These environmental messages shape your subconscious priorities more than you realize. I also discovered the power of what I call attention triggers, environmental cues that automatically direct focus toward high-priority activities. I placed specific items in my line of sight that reminded me of my most important objectives. When I saw these triggers, my mind immediately shifted to concentrated mode. The general who masters his environment masters his mind. The general who allows his environment to remain chaotic will find his thinking becomes equally chaotic. Your external order creates internal order, and internal order creates the capacity for sustained, powerful concentration. This is why I insist that environmental mastery is not about perfection, it's about intention. Every element in your workspace should serve your primary objective or be removed. This level of environmental discipline may seem extreme, but it creates the conditions where breakthrough focus becomes natural rather than forced. The fourth principle one mastered was temporal concentration, the strategic use of time to maximize focused effort. I learned that when you focus is often more important than what you focus on. Even the most concentrated effort will fail if applied at the wrong moment. I discovered this during a siege, where my forces had been attacking the same fortification for weeks without success. My concentrated attacks were powerful, but they were happening at predictable times when the enemy was most prepared. I realized that timing was as crucial as concentration. Perhaps more so, I began studying what I called the natural energy cycles, observing how my mental clarity and physical energy fluctuated throughout the day. I documented these patterns in detailed logs, noting when my strategic thinking was sharpest, when my decision-making was most sound, and when my concentration was most sustainable. These observations became my personal energy map. What I found surprised me. My peak mental performance occurred not during the busy afternoon hours when most business was conducted, but during the quiet pre-dawn hours when the world was still. My mind was clearest, my focus was strongest, and my strategic insights were most profound during these early morning hours. I began scheduling my most important thinking work during these peak periods. This discovery transformed my military effectiveness. Instead of spreading important decisions throughout the day, I concentrated them during my hours of peak mental clarity. Instead of working on complex strategies when my mind was tired, I saved routine administrative tasks for my low-energy periods. This alignment of energy with priority multiplied my strategic effectiveness. The same principle applies to your modern challenges. You have natural periods when concentration flows easily, and other periods when focus requires enormous effort. Most people work against their natural energy cycles, forcing themselves to tackle complex problems when their minds are least capable of handling them. This creates unnecessary struggle and reduces the quality of their work. I learned to treat my peak energy hours as sacred. No meetings, no interruptions, no reactive tasks. These hours were reserved exclusively for the strategic thinking that would determine victory or defeat. I protected these periods as fiercely as I protected my most valuable troops. Your peak focus periods are your most precious resource. They should be guarded more carefully than your time, more jealously than your money. When you align your most important work with your peak energy, you accomplish more in 2 hours than most people accomplish in 2 days. I also discovered the power of what I call focus rituals. Specific sequences of actions that signal to your mind that it's time for deep concentration. Before every important strategic session, I would perform the same sequence: clear my workspace, light specific incense, review my primary objective, and spend several minutes in silent preparation. These rituals created a mental bridge between scattered attention and concentrated focus. The enemy who attacks at the wrong time, even with superior forces, will be defeated by the defender who chooses the right moment to concentrate his response. Your breakthroughs will come not from working more hours, but from working your best hours on your most important objectives. Master your timing, and you master your results. The fifth principle that revolutionized my understanding of focus was mental fortification, the ability to protect your concentration from internal and external attacks. I learned that focus is not just about directing attention, but about defending it against the countless forces that seek to scatter it. During a particularly intense campaign, I found myself constantly distracted by worries about distant battles, concerns about supply lines, and doubts about my strategic decisions. My attention was being attacked from within by my own anxious thoughts, making it impossible to concentrate on the immediate tactical decisions that would determine victory or defeat. I realized that my mind had become like a fortress with broken walls, vulnerable to invasion from every direction. I needed to rebuild these mental fortifications if I was going to maintain the concentrated focus that victory required. This led me to develop what I called the mental defense system, a comprehensive approach to protecting attention from both internal and external threats. I began keeping detailed records in what I called the distraction analysis scrolls, documenting every interruption that broke my concentration. One tracked the source of each distraction, the time it occurred, its duration, and the mental energy required to refocus afterward. These records revealed patterns that shocked me. External distractions, urgent reports, unexpected visitors counted for less than 30% of my concentration breaks. The remaining 70% came from internal sources: worry about future outcomes, regret about past decisions, excitement about new possibilities, and anxiety about current challenges. My own mind was my greatest enemy in the battle for sustained focus. This revelation changed everything. I had been trying to control my external environment while ignoring the chaos within my own thoughts. I began developing techniques to fortify my mind against internal distractions, just as I fortified my camps against external attacks. The first defense I built was what I call the mental perimeter, clear boundary between productive thoughts and destructive ones. Just as I posted guards to keep enemies out of my camps, I learned to post mental guards to keep unproductive thoughts out of my focused work sessions. When worry about distant concerns tried to enter my consciousness during strategic planning, I would acknowledge the thought and then firmly redirect my attention to the immediate task. I developed a practice of mental reconnaissance, where I would spend a few minutes before each focus session identifying potential internal distractions. If I was worried about a supply shortage, I would acknowledge that concern and decide whether it needed immediate attention or could wait until later. This prevented these worries from launching surprise attacks on my concentration during important thinking work. The most powerful defense I discovered was what I call the objective anchor, a clear, specific focus target that serves as a mental home base. Whenever my attention wandered, I could return to this anchor and immediately restore concentrated focus. This anchor was not just a general goal, but a specific measurable outcome that I could visualize clearly. Your mind faces the same internal battles that mine did. Worry, excitement, regret, and anticipation are constantly trying to scatter your attention away from your current priorities. Without mental fortifications, you become vulnerable to every anxious thought and exciting possibility that crosses your consciousness. The sixth principle that transformed my strategic effectiveness was momentum cultivation, the art of building and sustaining concentrated effort over extended periods. I learned that focus is not a single moment of concentration, but a sustained campaign that requires careful energy management. I discovered this principle during a prolonged siege, where my initial concentrated attacks had been successful, but my forces were beginning to lose their focused intensity. The enemy had not grown stronger, but our concentration had grown weaker. I realized that even the most focused effort would fail if it could not be sustained long enough to achieve decisive victory. I began studying what I called the endurance patterns of my most successful campaigns, analyzing how concentrated effort could be maintained without exhaustion. I documented these observations in detailed records known as the Sustained Focus Codex, which became one of my most valuable strategic resources. What I found challenged my previous understanding of concentration. I had believed that maximum intensity was always superior, but I learned that sustainable intensity was more powerful. A moderate level of focus maintained for hours achieved more than maximum focus maintained for minutes. The general who burned out his mental energy in the first hour of battle would lose to the general who maintained steady concentration throughout the entire campaign. This led me to develop what I call the Rhythmic Focus method. Just as a skilled archer draws his bow with consistent tension rather than maximum force, I learned to maintain consistent mental tension rather than maximum mental effort. This approach prevented the focus fatigue that had undermined my previous campaigns. I discovered that concentration, like physical strength, becomes more powerful when exercised regularly. The more I practiced sustained focus, the longer I could maintain it without effort. My mental endurance grew just as my physical endurance had grown through consistent training. This was not about forcing concentration, but about building the capacity for effortless focus. The breakthrough came when I realized that rest was not the opposite of focus. It was part of focus. Strategic rest periods actually strengthened my ability to concentrate, just as strategic retreats sometimes strengthened my military position. I began scheduling regular mental recovery periods within my focused work sessions, preventing the exhaustion that had previously shortened my concentration cycles. I learned to recognize the early warning signs of focus fatigue, decreased clarity, increased irritability, and the tendency to make impulsive decisions. When these signs appeared, I would take a brief strategic rest rather than pushing through the exhaustion. This prevented the mental burnout that had previously forced me to abandon important strategic work. Your modern world demands the same kind of sustained focus that ancient campaigns required. The project that transforms your career, the skill that advances your position, the relationship that enriches your life all require concentration sustained over weeks and months, not just minutes and hours. Most people approach focus like a sprint when they need to approach it like a marathon. The key is learning to pace your mental energy for the long campaign ahead. This means accepting moderate intensity over maximum intensity, choosing sustainable effort over heroic effort, and building focus endurance through consistent practice rather than occasional burst of extreme concentration. The seventh principle that elevated my strategic mastery was adaptive concentration, the ability to adjust focus, intensity, and duration based on the specific demands of each situation. I learned that not every objective requires the same level of concentrated effort, and applying the wrong type of focus wastes precious mental energy. I discovered this during a complex campaign where I was simultaneously managing a siege, negotiating with potential allies, and planning a flanking maneuver. Each situation required a different type of mental attention, and I was exhausting myself by applying maximum concentration to tasks that needed only moderate focus. I began developing what I called the focus intensity matrix, documenting how different types of work demanded different levels of mental engagement. I recorded these observations in scrolls I named the tactical attention guides, which helped me match my concentration level to the strategic importance of each task. Routine administrative work required what I called maintenance focus steady, but not intense attention that could be sustained for long periods without fatigue. Strategic planning demanded what I called deep focus, maximum concentration applied for shorter periods to complex problems. Crisis response needed what I called rapid focus, quick bursts of intense attention that could be deployed and withdrawn quickly. The breakthrough came when I realized that trying to use deep focus for maintenance tasks was like using a warhammer to write a letter, dramatically inefficient and unnecessarily exhausting. Similarly, trying to use maintenance focus for strategic planning was like using a feather to break down a door, insufficient for the task at hand. I learned to consciously calibrate my focus intensity before beginning any task. If I was reviewing supply reports, I would shift into maintenance focus, mode alert, but relaxed, thorough, but not obsessive. If I was planning a complex battle strategy, I would shift into deep focus, mode intense, concentrated, and completely absorbed. This conscious calibration prevented the mental exhaustion that had previously undermined my effectiveness. Your modern work presents the same challenge. Reading emails requires different mental energy than solving complex problems. Attending routine meetings demands different focus than creating innovative solutions. Most people apply the same level of mental intensity to every task, either exhausting themselves on trivial work or underperforming on important work. I also discovered the power of what I call focus transition, specific mental techniques for shifting between different concentration modes. Just as I had specific procedures for moving troops between different formations, I developed specific procedures for moving my mind between different focus states. These transitions prevented the mental confusion that occurred when I tried to jump directly from one type of concentration to another. The master of adaptive concentration conserves mental energy for the battles that matter most. He does not waste deep focus on tasks that require only maintenance focus, nor does he apply maintenance focus to challenges that demand full concentration. This strategic allocation of mental resources multiplies effectiveness while reducing fatigue. Learning to match your focus intensity to task importance is like learning to match your physical effort to the weight you're lifting. Use too little focus and you fail to achieve your objective. Use too much focus and you exhaust yourself unnecessarily. The skilled strategist applies exactly the right level of concentration to each situation. The eighth principle that revolutionized my understanding of focus was collaborative concentration, the ability to synchronize focused effort with others to achieve objectives that individual concentration cannot accomplish. I learned that while personal focus is powerful, aligned group focus is unstoppable. I discovered this during a coordinated attack where 3 separate units needed to breach different sections of an enemy fortress simultaneously. Each unit possessed strong individual focus, but their efforts were not synchronized. The first unit broke through their section, only to find themselves isolated and overwhelmed because the other units were still fighting. Individual excellence without coordination led to collective failure. This failure taught me that focus is not just an individual discipline, it's a group capability that can be developed and deployed strategically. I began creating what I called the collective focus protocols, detailed procedures for aligning multiple minds toward shared objectives. These protocols became some of my most valuable strategic tools. I've documented these techniques in scrolls known as the Unity of Purpose manuals, which outlined how to create shared focus among diverse groups of people. I learned that achieving collaborative concentration required more than just assigning the same task to multiple people, required creating genuine alignment of attention, energy, and commitment. The foundation of collaborative focus is what I call shared mental models. Before any group can focus together effectively, every member must understand the objective, the strategy, and their specific role in achieving success. When these mental models are misaligned, even the most focused individuals will work against each other rather than with each other. I developed regular sessions where I would ensure that my officers shared not just the same information, but the same understanding of that information. We would discuss not just what we were trying to accomplish, but why it mattered and how our individual efforts connected to the larger strategic picture. This created the mental unity that made collaborative focus possible. Your modern workplace faces the same challenge. Teams with highly focused individuals often fail because their focus is not aligned. One person focuses on speed, while another focuses on quality. One department focuses on innovation, while another focuses on efficiency. Without shared mental models, individual focus becomes organizational chaos. I also discovered the importance of what I call synchronized focus rhythms. Just as an army must march in step to move efficiently, a team must focus in harmony to work effectively. This meant creating shared work cycles, common priorities, and coordinated rest periods. When everyone is focusing intensely at the same time, the collective mental energy becomes greater than the sum of individual efforts. The most powerful collaborative focus technique I developed was what I call the chain of concentration. Each person in the group would focus on their specific responsibility while maintaining awareness of how their work affected the person next in the chain. This created a flow of focused effort that moved seamlessly from one person to the next, preventing the gaps and overlaps that typically fragment group productivity. Collaborative concentration also requires what I call focus leadership, ability to guide group attention toward shared objectives while maintaining individual accountability. This is different from traditional leadership because it requires managing not just actions and decisions, but the quality and direction of collective mental energy. The ninth principle that transformed my strategic effectiveness was resilient focus, the ability to maintain concentration despite setbacks, failures, and unexpected challenges. I learned that unbreakable focus is not about avoiding difficulties, but about maintaining mental clarity when difficulties arise. I discovered this principle during one of my most challenging campaigns, where every strategy I employed seemed to fail. My initial plans were countered by an unexpectedly clever enemy. My backup strategies were undermined by supply problems. My tactical adjustments were neutralized by changing weather conditions. Lesser generals would have abandoned their objectives. But I learned to maintain focused determination even when everything seemed to be going wrong. The breakthrough came when I realized that my focus was brittle effective in ideal conditions, but fragile when conditions changed. I needed to develop what I called antifragile concentration, focus that actually became stronger under pressure rather than weaker. This required a fundamental shift in how I thought about obstacles and setbacks. I began keeping detailed records in what I called the Adversity Response Chronicles, documenting how different types of challenges affected my mental clarity and what techniques helped me maintain focus during difficult periods. These records became invaluable for developing systematic approaches to resilient concentration. What I found surprised me. The challenges that destroyed my focus were not the dramatic crises, those actually sharpened my concentration. Instead, it was the persistent minor frustrations, the accumulated small setbacks, and the gradual erosion of confidence that scattered my attention most effectively. I needed to develop resilience, not just against major disasters, but against the constant stream of small disappointments that are part of any important endeavor. I learned to treat setbacks as focus training rather than focus obstacles. Each unexpected challenge became an opportunity to strengthen my mental resilience. Each failure became practice for maintaining clarity under pressure. This reframing transformed my relationship with adversity from something that weakened my concentration to something that strengthened it. The key technique I developed was what I call the Refocus Protocol, systematic method for rapidly restoring concentration after it has been disrupted by unexpected events. When something went wrong, I would immediately shift into this protocol, acknowledge the setback without judgment, assess what could be learned from it, adjust my strategy based on new information, and then return to focused execution of the revised plan. This protocol prevented the mental spiral that had previously occurred when things went wrong. Instead of allowing one setback to create anxiety about future setbacks, I learned to treat each challenge as isolated information that could improve my strategy. This kept my focus forward-looking rather than backward-dwelling. Your modern challenges require the same kind of resilient focus. The project that gets delayed, the proposal that gets rejected, the strategy that doesn't work as planned, these are not reasons to abandon your objectives, but opportunities to strengthen your concentration. Under pressure, the person who maintains focus only when everything goes well will never achieve anything significant. I also discovered that resilient focus requires what I call emotional regulation under fire. When unexpected challenges arise, your emotional response can either strengthen or shatter your concentration. Fear, anger, and disappointment are natural reactions to setbacks, but they become obstacles to clear thinking if not managed properly. The 10th principle that elevated my strategic mastery was intuitive focused, the ability to maintain concentration while remaining open to breakthrough insights that emerge from focused effort. I learned that rigid focus can be as limiting as scattered attention, and that true mastery requires a balance between concentrated effort and creative awareness. I discovered this during a siege where my methodical, focused approach had reached an impasse. My concentrated attacks were precise and powerful, but they were not breaking through the enemy's defenses. I was so focused on executing my existing strategy that I was blind to alternative possibilities that might have emerged from a more flexible approach to concentration. The breakthrough came during a moment of quiet reflection between attacks. While maintaining my focus on the siege, I allowed my mind to explore peripheral possibilities. Suddenly, I noticed a pattern in the enemy's defensive movements that suggested a weakness I had not previously considered. This insight led to a completely different strategy that achieved victory within days. I realized that my focus had been too narrow, powerful, but inflexible. I needed to develop what I called dynamic focus, concentration that was strong enough to drive sustained effort, but flexible enough to recognize new opportunities as they emerged. This required a more sophisticated understanding of how attention could be both concentrated and adaptive simultaneously. I began documenting these insights in scrolls I called the Breakthrough Awareness Codex, recording how different types of focused attention either enhanced or inhibited creative insights. I learned that breakthrough ideas rarely came during maximum concentration, but they often emerged during what I called focused relaxation moments of calm attention, where the mind remained directed toward an objective, but was not forcing a specific solution. The key was learning to distinguish between productive focus and counterproductive forcing. Productive focus created the conditions where insights could emerge. Counterproductive forcing created mental tension that blocked creative awareness. The difference was subtle but critical, like the difference between a skilled archer who draws his bow with relaxed strength versus one who draws with rigid tension. I developed what I call the peripheral awareness technique, where I would maintain primary focus on my immediate objective while keeping secondary awareness open to unexpected information or possibilities. This prevented the tunnel vision that had previously caused me to miss important strategic opportunities. Your modern challenges require the same balance between focused effort and creative awareness. The solution to your most important problems may not come from working harder within your current approach, but from maintaining focused attention while remaining open to entirely different possibilities. The breakthrough insight that transforms your career may emerge not during intense concentration, but during moments of focused relaxation. I also learned that intuitive focus requires what I call strategic patience, the ability to maintain concentrated effort without forcing immediate results. Some objectives require sustained focus over extended periods before breakthrough insights emerge. The general who abandons his strategy too quickly will never discover the breakthrough. That was just beyond his current understanding. This principle taught me that focus is not about controlling outcomes, but about creating conditions where desired outcomes can emerge naturally. The skilled strategist focuses intensely on the process while holding lightly to specific expectations about results. Now that I have shared with you the 10 principles that transformed my understanding of focus, let me show you how to integrate them into a unified system that will revolutionize your ability to achieve meaningful results. These principles are not meant to be used in isolation. They work together to create a foundation for unbreakable concentration. The integration begins with what I call the daily focused architecture, systematic approach to organizing your entire day around the principles of concentrated effort. Just as I would plan a military campaign by considering terrain, weather, enemy positions, and troop capabilities simultaneously, you must plan your daily focus by considering energy levels, environmental factors, priority objectives, and concentration techniques together. I developed a master framework that I recorded in what I called the Complete Focus Integration Manual, a comprehensive guide that showed how all 10 principles could be woven together into a seamless system of sustained concentration. This manual became my most valuable strategic resource, more precious than gold or weapons. The foundation of this integrated system is what I call the morning focus ritual. Before engaging in any reactive tasks, I would spend the first hour of each day establishing the mental conditions for sustained concentration. This ritual included reviewing my primary objectives, preparing my environment, calibrating my energy levels, and setting my intention for the type of focus each task would require. This morning ritual was not just preparation, it was strategic positioning. By beginning each day with intentional focus rather than reactive scattered attention, I gained a crucial advantage that multiplied throughout the entire day. The general who starts the battle with his forces already in formation will defeat the general who tries to organize his troops while under attack. Your modern morning routine either sets you up for focused success or scattered struggle. Most people begin their day by immediately checking messages, reading news, and responding to other people's priorities. This scatters their mental army before they have had a chance to concentrate their forces on their own objectives. I learned to protect my morning focus time as fiercely as I protected my most strategic positions. No meetings, no emails, no interruptions were allowed during the first hour of each day. This time was devoted exclusively to organizing my mental resources for maximum effectiveness. The investment of 1 focused hour at the beginning of the day returned 10 focused hours throughout the remainder of the day. The next element of integration is what I call the priority alignment process. Each morning, I would identify the 3 most important objectives for the day and align them with my peak energy periods, optimal environmental conditions, and appropriate focus techniques. This prevented the random approach to important work. that had previously scattered my effectiveness. I would assign my most challenging strategic thinking to my peak mental energy periods, my routine administrative work to my moderate energy periods, and my collaborative work to times when my social energy was highest. This systematic alignment of energy with priority created effortless effectiveness, where previously there had been struggling effort. The key to successful integration is understanding that these principles must be applied consistently over time. To create lasting change, occasional bursts of focused effort will not transform your capabilities. Sustained application of these principles will. The third element of integration is what I call the focus maintenance system, comprehensive approach to sustaining concentration throughout extended periods of challenging work. I learned that starting with focus was only half the battle. Maintaining that focus under pressure was what separated victory from defeat. I developed this system during a campaign that lasted 18 months, requiring sustained strategic thinking while managing constantly changing conditions. I discovered that focus, like physical fitness, required regular maintenance to prevent deterioration. Without systematic attention to sustaining concentration, even the most powerful initial focus would gradually weaken until it became ineffective. The foundation of this maintenance system was what I documented in my focus sustainability records, detailed tracking of how different factors affected my concentration over time. I monitored my energy levels, environmental conditions, emotional state, and mental clarity at regular intervals throughout each day. This data revealed patterns that allowed me to predict and prevent focus degradation before it occurred. What I found was that focus degradation followed predictable patterns. Physical fatigue reduced concentration gradually. Emotional stress reduced it suddenly. Environmental distractions reduced it intermittently. And mental overload reduced it catastrophically. By understanding these patterns, I could implement countermeasures before my concentration was compromised. I developed what I call the focus recovery protocols, spastic techniques for rapidly restoring concentration when it began to weaken. These protocols were not just about taking breaks, but about strategic interventions that addressed the specific cause of focus degradation. Physical fatigue required movement and fresh air. Emotional stress required acknowledgement and reframing. Environmental distractions required boundary reinforcement. Mental overload required priority clarification. The key insight was that different types of focus degradation required different types of recovery. Trying to solve emotional stress with physical rest was ineffective. Trying to solve environmental distractions with mental techniques was futile. Each type of focus challenge needed its own specific solution. Your modern work environment creates unique challenges for focus maintenance. Digital interruptions occur at unpredictable intervals, creating what I call attention fragmentation syndrome. Your mind becomes conditioned to expect interruption, making sustained concentration increasingly difficult even when interruptions are not present. I learned to combat this by creating what I call protected focus zones, specific times and spaces, where interruption was impossible. During these periods, I would disconnect from all communication systems, inform others that I was unavailable, and create environmental conditions that supported sustained concentration. These zones became islands of deep focus in an ocean of scattered attention. The most important element of focus maintenance is what I call the concentration auditor, regular review of what is supporting or undermining your ability to maintain sustained attention. I would conduct these audits weekly, examining which activities enhanced my focus and which activities degraded it. This information guided my decisions about how to structure my time and energy. I discovered that certain activities were focus multipliers. They enhanced my concentration for hours afterward. Strategic thinking, physical exercise, meaningful conversations, and creative work all increased my subsequent ability to focus deeply. Other activities were focus destroyers. They scattered my attention for extended periods. Reactive communication, consuming negative news, engaging in pointless debates, and multitasking all reduced my concentration capacity. The skilled strategist maximizes focus multipliers and minimizes focus destroyers. This requires conscious choice about how to spend your time and energy, treating your concentration as a precious resource that must be invested wisely rather than spent carelessly. The fourth element of integration is what I call the focus scaling system, the ability to apply these principles not just to individual tasks, but to projects, careers, and life objectives that require sustained concentration over months and years. I learned that true mastery comes not from perfect focus in isolated moments, but from consistent focus over extended periods. I discovered this during what would become my longest and most complex campaign, requiring coordinated focus across multiple fronts for over 2 years. Individual battles could be won through intense concentration, but entire wars required a different kind of sustained strategic attention. I needed to develop what I called campaign-level focus concentration that could be maintained at strategic intensity without burning out. The breakthrough came when I realized that long-term focus required different techniques than short-term focus. Sprint-level concentration was about maximum intensity for brief periods. Marathon-level concentration was about sustainable intensity for extended periods. Campaign-level concentration was about strategic intensity that could adapt to changing conditions while maintaining consistent direction. Documented these insights in what I called the long-term focus mastery scrolls, which became my guide for applying concentrated effort to objectives that required months or years to achieve. These scrolls revealed that sustained focus was not about maintaining constant high intensity, but about maintaining consistent direction while varying intensity based on strategic needs. The foundation of long-term focus is what I call the strategic focus hierarchy. At the top level is your ultimate objective, the single most important outcome you want to achieve. Below that are your campaign objectives, the major milestones that must be reached to achieve your ultimate goal. At the bottom are your tactical objectives, the specific actions you take each day to advance your campaign objectives. This hierarchy prevents the focus fragmentation that destroys long-term progress. When you understand how your daily actions connect to your ultimate objectives, you can maintain motivation and direction even when immediate results are not visible. The soldier who understands the overall strategy will fight with different intensity than the soldier who only knows his immediate orders. Your modern career requires the same kind of strategic focus hierarchy. The skill you want to develop, the position you want to achieve, the impact you want to make, these are ultimate objectives that require sustained concentration over years. Without a clear hierarchy connecting daily actions to long-term goals, your focus will scatter across whatever seems most urgent or interesting in the moment. I learned to review this hierarchy regularly, asking myself whether my current focus allocation was advancing my ultimate objectives or merely creating busy work. This regular review prevented the gradual drift that had previously caused me to work hard without making meaningful progress toward my most important goals. The key to scaling focus over time is what I call the compound concentration effect. Just as financial investments compound over time, focused efforts compound over time. Each day of concentrated work builds upon the previous day's progress, creating momentum that makes subsequent progress easier and more rapid. This compound effect only works when focus is sustained consistently over extended periods. Intermittent bursts of intense focus, separated by periods of scattered attention, do not create compound benefits. The mathematics of compound growth require consistent application over time, not sporadic application at high intensity. I also discovered that long-term focus requires what I call strategic patience, the ability to maintain concentration on objectives, even when progress seems slow or invisible. The most important results often require extended periods of focused effort before any visible progress occurs. The final element of integration is what I call the focus mastery evaluation, a systematic method for measuring and improving your concentration effectiveness over time. I learned that what gets measured gets mastered, and focus is no exception. To this principle, I developed this evaluation system after realizing that I had been making the same focus mistakes repeatedly without recognizing the patterns. I was working harder rather than more effectively, applying more effort rather than better technique. I needed a systematic way to identify what was working and what was not, so I could continuously improve my concentration capabilities. The foundation of this evaluation system was what I documented in the Focus Performance Analytics detailed records of how different focus techniques affected my strategic effectiveness. I tracked not just my activities, but the quality of attention I brought to those activities and the results that different types of focus produced. What I discovered through this systematic measurement was that my subjective experience of focus was often misleading. Times when I felt like I was concentrating intensely were not always the times when I was producing the best results. Times when focus felt effortless were often when I was most productive. This taught me that focus mastery required objective measurement, not just subjective experience. I began tracking what I call focus quality, indicator-specific metrics that revealed the effectiveness of my concentration rather than just the intensity of my effort. These indicators included the complexity of problems I could solve, the duration I could maintain attention without fatigue, the speed at which I could shift between different types of focus, and the consistency of my concentration across different conditions. The most valuable metric I discovered was what I call the focused results ratio, the relationship between the mental energy I invested in a task and the strategic value of the outcomes I achieved. This ratio revealed when I was applying too much focus to low-value activities and too little focus to high-value activities. Through regular measurement, I learned that my focus effectiveness followed predictable patterns. My concentration was strongest during specific times of day, in specific environments, and when working on specific types of challenges. This data allowed me to optimize my focus allocation for maximum strategic impact. Your modern challenges require the same kind of systematic evaluation. The difference between feeling busy and being effective is often the difference between scattered effort and focused effort. Without measurement, you may be working harder while achieving less, applying maximum effort to minimum value activities. I developed what I call the weekly focused reviewer, systematic examination of how my concentration had affected my strategic progress during the previous week. This review included identifying my most and least focused periods, analyzing what had supported or undermined my concentration, and planning adjustments for the following week. The key insight from these reviews was that focus mastery is not a destination, but a continuous process of improvement. Each week revealed new insights about how to optimize my concentration for better results. Small improvements in focus quality created large improvements in strategic effectiveness over time. I also learned that focus mastery requires what I call concentration courage, the willingness to say no to good opportunities so you can say yes to great opportunities. This courage is not about rejecting everything, but about choosing consciously where to direct your most precious resource, your sustained attention. The master of focus measures not just what he accomplishes, but how effectively he accomplishes it. This distinction separates those who work hard from those who work strategically. Now that you understand the complete system of unbreakable focus, let me show you how to implement these principles in your modern world. The battlefield may have changed, but the fundamental laws of concentrated effort remain as powerful today as they were 25 centuries ago. The first step in implementation is what I call the focus foundation, assessment or systematic evaluation of your current concentration capabilities and the specific challenges you face. Just as I would never enter a battle without understanding the terrain, you must never attempt to improve your focus without understanding your current mental landscape. I have created what I call the Modern Focus Implementation Guide, a practical framework that translates ancient strategic principles into contemporary application. This guide addresses the unique challenges of your digital age, while building upon the timeless foundations of concentrated effort. Begin by identifying your primary focus disruptors, the specific forces that most frequently scatter your attention. In my era, these were sudden enemy movements, urgent messenger reports, and unexpected supply problems. In your era, they are digital notifications, competing priorities, and the constant pressure to multitask. The specific disruptors have changed, but the need to defend against them remains constant. Create what I call your personal focus fortress, a systematic approach to protecting your concentration from these modern disruptions. This fortress has 3 walls: environmental protection, which eliminates physical distractions from your workspace; temporal protection, which guards your peak energy hours from non-essential activities; and mental protection, which defends your attention from internal distractions like worry and excitement. The next step is to establish your daily focus rhythm, a consistent schedule that aligns your most important work with your peak concentration periods. I learned that consistency creates capability, and scattered scheduling creates scattered results. Your daily rhythm should be as predictable as the sunrise, creating the mental conditions where deep focus becomes automatic rather than effortful. Your daily focus rhythm should include a morning concentration ritual that prepares your mind for sustained effort, deep focus blocks during your peak energy hours when interruption is impossible, adaptive focus periods for tasks that require moderate attention, and recovery intervals that restore your capacity for sustained concentration. The most critical element of implementation is what I call the first victory principle, choosing an initial focus challenge that is meaningful enough to matter, but achievable enough to build confidence. Too many people try to transform their entire focus system simultaneously, creating the scattered effort that these principles are designed to prevent. Select one important project or objective that will benefit from concentrated effort. Apply the complete focus system to this single target for 30 days. Master the principles on this limited battlefield before expanding to larger campaigns. This approach builds the focus muscles gradually while producing immediate results that reinforce your commitment to the system. Your first victory should be something that matters to your career, your relationships, or your personal development. It should be challenging enough to require sustained focus, but specific enough to measure progress clearly. This combination of meaning and measurability creates the motivation needed to develop new focus habits. Remember that focus mastery is not about perfection, it is about consistent improvement. Each day you apply these principles, your concentration becomes stronger and more reliable. Each week you maintain the system, your ability to achieve complex objectives increases. Each month you practice unbreakable focus, your competitive advantage grows. As I prepare to leave you with these principles that transformed my understanding of victory, I want you to understand that what I have shared is not just theory. It is the distilled wisdom of a lifetime spent studying the nature of concentrated effort. Every principle I have taught you was learned through direct experience, often at great cost, always with great consequence. The world has changed dramatically since I walked ancient battlefields, but the fundamental nature of focus remains unchanged. Scattered attention still leads to scattered results. Concentrated effort still creates concentrated power. The person who masters these principles will achieve what others consider impossible, just as armies that applied these principles achieved what seemed impossible on ancient battlefields. I have given you the complete system that took me decades to develop and refine. These are not my theories, they are my discoveries, tested in the crucible of strategic necessity and proven through the achievement of objectives that lesser focus could not have accomplished. You now possess the same knowledge that guided my greatest victories. The legacy focus testament I leave with you contains not just techniques, but the deeper understanding that transformed my approach to every challenge I faced. Focus is not about working harder. It is about working with such concentrated intensity that ordinary effort produces extraordinary results. It is about aligning your mental energy with your most important objectives so completely that success becomes inevitable rather than hopeful. But knowledge without application is worthless. I have given you the principles, but you must provide the commitment. These techniques will not transform your effectiveness unless you apply them consistently over time. The general who studies strategy but never practices it will lose to the general who applies basic principles with unwavering consistency. Your modern world offers you advantages. I never had tools that can amplify focused effort, technologies that can eliminate routine distractions, and opportunities that can reward concentrated achievement more richly than any ancient victory. But it also presents challenges. I never faced digital interruptions that can scatter attention instantly, information overload that can paralyze decision-making, and cultural pressure to multitask that directly contradicts everything I have taught you. That choice before you is the same choice that faced every general who ever lived. Will you concentrate your forces for maximum impact, or will you scatter them for minimum effectiveness? Will you master the art of focus, or will you remain a victim of distraction? Will you apply these principles until they become second nature, or will you allow them to become forgotten knowledge? I have seen scattered armies 3 times larger than focused armies suffer complete defeat. I have seen concentrated forces achieve victories that historians still study today. The difference was not in the size of the armies, but in the quality of their focus. The same principle applies to your life and your objectives. 25 centuries have passed since I developed these principles, yet they remain as relevant and powerful as they were on the day I first applied them. The human mind has not changed. The nature of achievement has not changed. The laws of concentrated effort have not changed. What has changed is your opportunity to apply these timeless principles to challenges and opportunities that I could never have imagined. Take what I have taught you. Apply it with the same intensity that ancient generals applied it to life and death situations. Master these principles until unbreakable focus becomes your natural state rather than your struggle. The victory you achieve will honor not just your own efforts, but the eternal truth that concentrated force always defeats scattered effort. The battlefield awaits. Your focus is your weapon. Victory belongs to those who concentrate their power at the decisive moment. Now go and make your focus unbreakable.